Okay, everybody, we are back, and I have Michael Pinto with me right now, who is one of our Normie members and senior trainers, actually. And we did quite a bit of training this morning where Michael actually did the final session in our training track dealing with mycotoxins and dealing with sensitized individuals, I believe.
It was very exciting, and it is pretty much new information. The science has been collecting slowly, in my opinion, over the last 12 or 14 years. But when you finally put it all together and actually see the picture that is painting for you about mycotoxins and the dangers that they pose for people and why they're so difficult to clean up and why we have to adjust our cleaning methodologies to deal with them, it really is kind of mind blowing for a lot of people.
Well, you had standing room only in there this afternoon. I was in there and I took a look and said, every chair is like filled here, it's standing room only. So people are getting aware or becoming aware of the sensitized individual issue, and they want more info on it.
Well, the sensitized individuals, and then that ties back to the mycotoxins because the poisons are clearly what's causing a lot of the health effects for these sensitized individuals. So for those folks who aren't as familiar with that terminology, the medical science, the physical science in regards to the mold, the sampling science, and the remediation science are all coming to a focal point right now that's helping us understand the importance of the mycotoxins and, most importantly, how to deal with the mycotoxins.
How about the medical field? Are they paying real attention to this, or are they still, it's not quite in their arena?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because it's really segments of the medical field. The naturopaths and the the doctors that specialize with and the physician assistants and things like that specialize with the sensitized individuals, they get mycotoxins. They're on it. 4 or 5 years ago, when I was talking about mycotoxins and had the sense from some of the kind of more esoteric research studies and stuff that they were more dangerous or bigger part of the problem than what we understand now, or that we now understand. There was some skepticism on the side of the medical professionals, but the ones who are dealing with sensitized individuals, they get it. The majority of the medical professionals, however, don't deal with that, and they still don't get mold, let alone mycotoxins. So two different parts.
We see that all the time where somebody will go to a doctor or an allergist and they're treated with all kinds of injections and oral medications, and then sent back to the environment that's causing them the problems.
Yeah. And I certainly don't want to, paint with too broad of a brush or say anything negative toward our medical professional colleagues and stuff. But people don't understand. A lot of times the allergist, just by their training and by the way that whole industry is developed, they're about symptom control. They're not necessarily about solving the problem. And so then when you add the extra of the problem solving goes into the environment rather than into the person necessarily, then you've got two strikes against you. Yeah. And so we've done little training seminars and things for allergists, and by and large, they're not interested.
No, and I've seen that because I've talked with allergists too. And no, we stay in our lane. We provide allergy shots and medications, but nobody addresses the cause.
Yeah, it's symptoms versus cause. And I would point out that's some of that is actually true for the remediation industry too. How many people are there just to rip out the mold and never, take a close look at where the water's coming from, or how is the HVAC working or not working? And how many times have we talked about HVAC units being oversized for a house? Yeah. And then you've got excess humidity. Well, if you're just dealing with the mold itself and not fixing those underlying issues, those poor people are left. What is it going to be? 6 months, a year before the mold comes back because you didn't solve the water problem.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I did a presentation this morning. Actually, my segment was before yours. And I talked to the group about words mean things. but they mean different things depending on what industry you're in, what your education level is, what you're exposed to. And telling somebody something that we take for granted because we know how it affects people, they hear something different. And it's very confusing when you try to tell somebody you need to, well, why? It doesn't make sense. My doctor said this.
Yes. And not to turn it completely back toward myself or anything, but that's one of the reasons that the presentation this morning on the mycotoxins was laid out the way that it was. It was foundational first. We have to, people don't even know what mycotoxins are, where they come from, why they stick on surfaces, why they're difficult to clean. So, if you don't back up and start with those basics, even people who have been in the industry for 10, 15 years, they're looking at you, well, why should I change what I'm doing now? Right? Because it's been working so far. Well, it's been working for some. And, I'm not denigrating that, but for the sensitized individual, or you run into a situation where the mycotoxins are playing a heavier role in the exposure issues, and your standard remediation just isn't going to cut it.
Right. And that causes frustration with the people that aren't being trained or not being trained, but the public that you're dealing with. And then you start to get a bad reputation because you're not fixing the issue, because you're not addressing the sensitized individual's needs.
Yeah. And worse than that, though, you're getting a bad reputation, but you're getting a bad reputation to the rest of the industry too.
Yeah.
So how many times have I heard by the time the client gets to us, we've had 3 remediations, we've had 4 remediations. These people are, suffering a little bit.
Absolutely. I've had 6 people out here doing this, and it's over and over. Why are you any different? What are you going to, and then you get to explain to them, the different levels of training and the causes. It makes sense to people at that point. Though you did say something a moment ago that just hit me, and it's a line from a movie I saw. You said, turning around about me, what you were saying.
Yeah.
I said, I think the line from the movie went something like, okay, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? Just breaking it up from.
I like that. So what do you think?
I can't say. It's just live.
Yeah,
there's
true.
no editing here.
It's true.
No, it was really great. It is great working with you. We've done some training together. I've attended a lot of your classes. I've done a lot of the admin support, behind the scenes. So we've worked on a lot of stuff, and the reception that you're given from the students is really, it can be, I guess, overwhelming, because they just want to flock around you. Tell me more, and they become information sponges, and you just can't give it to them fast enough.
Yes. And a lot of that is because they aren't getting the answers from people that they expect to get the answers from.
Right.
And I would say the other thing I've kind of made my career on is being that bridge between the professional and the layperson. And I thank God I've got an ability, and it's a gift, to take these very complex issues and present them in a way that people understand at a common level. And it's not saying that people are dumb or anything like that. It's just they don't spend all day reading the studies and being the mold geek like I am.
Exposed to the industry.
Right.
They don't see that. One of the things that we found out about some of the more advanced courses that you teach, we have to be cautious that you don't let somebody in that has no training.
Right.
Because it becomes a detriment to the class, because they're so far behind, they don't understand. And then they're asking questions that the majority of the class that has training already knows the information. So it's something that becomes difficult. You don't want to make prerequisites. However, it's something that we really need to discuss and talk about for these classes.
Yeah, because you have to respect the other people in the class too.
Yeah.
You can't have one person. You run into the other issue too sometimes, where people have a lot of experience and they come in and because of the experience they have, they almost act like they're a co-instructor. They just want to comment on everything that you say. And at some point it's like, I appreciate that, but if you want to be an instructor, develop your own material and talk to Normie and see if it passes muster to do a class. But
You're right.
The other thing I did want to mention is that training also has to be based on something real. And one of the reasons I think it's such a good fit with Wonder Makers and Normie is because Normie talks about professional practices. They talk about this is what you need to do. This is the goal that you need to meet for your different remediation steps.
And there's endpoints. It's not just open,
Right.
there's requirements and things that you have to reach in order to qualify that job is done right.
Right. So sometimes it's not so much, there can be a lot of flexibility in the how we're going to do things, but ultimately we have to get to that endpoint. We have to know where that project is going to end. And then that's what the professional practices do for us. They tell us both how to get there, but they also, because there's steps to it, but they also say at the end, this is what the end result should look like. And that's huge.
So let me put you on the spot here. And what do you think the chances are that we could take the segment you did this morning and actually do it for a Normie continuing education training?
Okay, just put me right on the spot. Thank you there, Lance. I appreciate that.
Not that we're twisting your arm or anything.
Yeah, so now what am I supposed to say? No?
Well,
Well, thank you for the offer.
you got to remember, it's not about you. It's about me thinking about you. That's where that goes.
Yes. Well, actually, what it should be would be about us serving the Normie membership. And if you think that what you heard today was good enough that you would like to put it up on the training and everything, I would be honored. I mean, it's the presentation's already done. And so it's not that much more work to just go through it another time. And I'm sure there's a lot of Normie members who weren't able to make it down here to the experience conference. And I think that would be a forum, and then people could, ask some questions and stuff too.
Sure could. One of the things that, I always talk about is with technology, don't fear the technology. You don't have to understand it completely, but you have to be aware that it's there. Same thing with this. Don't fear learning about mycotoxins and more advanced training and technology in this industry. Be aware that it exists though, because you can always say, I don't know the answer, but I know where to go to get it.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is that one of the things we talk about in the session and certainly can emphasize a little bit on the, member training is just some clues that you should be familiar with to know that you're walking into the, kind of the mycotoxin minefield.
Sure.
So that, because that's going to be the thing that hurts people the most, is that they are doing their standard remediation. They're having great success with that. They expect that this next project is going to be pretty straightforward.
And the conditions have changed and the requirements have changed.
Or the occupant is different. Right. And if they don't have enough information to identify those clues that tells them that, then they could be in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, I think it would be very beneficial for any crowd that we can put, whether it's online or in person, in front of you to learn about this technology, about the research that's been done, about things that they can do to improve the work that they're doing for these sensitized individuals, which is what, 25% of the population now?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to pick up on that comment too, because one of the things that's most important to me is this idea that in the restoration industry in general, and even in the mold remediation industry, there's so much MUS, that's muss, made up stuff.
Yep.
And so the information that I brought forward this morning that I'm, that we'll have to set up a time to share with the rest of the Normie membership, it's not made up stuff. It's science. It's documented. It's, you do the hard work. You got to get the footnotes. You got to have the studies, legitimate peer-reviewed studies, so that, it's real science behind it. And as I explained in the session this morning, it's not that anecdotal data isn't useful. So if I run a project the same way 5 times and I have success 5 times in a row, that's anecdotal data. And that tells me, okay, I'm on to something. But that's not scientific data that is explaining why you're having that particular success.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because this morning during my presentation, and what mine was about all different types of sampling technology and equipment and things out there. But it all comes down to the question, why? Why do you use that device? Why do you do that type of sample? Why don't you do that kind? And this industry doesn't always address why things are done. And that's what needs to be there.
And I mean, we'll take it back one step previous to that. The one before you was Doug talking about assessments. And it's the same thing. Why do you do the assessments? Why should you do a better assessment than what you're doing right now? And he's got like 6 things there. You're protecting yourself from liability. You're answering the question is what's going on. You're helping to write a work plan. I mean, he goes through that whole list, but by and large, it's answering the why question so that you can then move confidently from the why to the what are we going to do.
It's funny. I talked with Doug before I did the presentation, and he made a change to the PowerPoint that I had set up for it. It was the word why that was on the screen. We're in Vegas. He changed it to WHY on dice. We're in Vegas. It had to be that way. So
Yeah.
It made the point.
Indeed.
Indeed. Well, thank you, sir.
What a blessing.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank
And we'll do more of this, and we will get together as far as picking a time to do a recertification training or some sort of training with your presentation that you did today for the Norton membership. And we'll see about doing it on an open feed like this.
Yeah. And I just got to tell you, thank you, Lance. I mean, if you thought it was good enough to actually invite me back to share with the other Normie members, that's high praise for me. And I appreciate you very much. I
Well, thank
joke
you.
with you too much, but I do appreciate you.
Now, you know what? It's such a serious industry, yet you have to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I went to a woman's house once to do an assessment. She was terrified that we were going to find mold and it was going to be a horrific situation. And I could see how she was shaking. And I took her by the arm and I said, come with me. And we walked to the front door. And I said, do you see a bulldozer out there? She's looking. She said, no. I said, we're not knocking your house down. We're just here talking. Relax. It's not that bad. And she calmed down. So there's a fear out there, and we really need to help people with that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's too many people in the industry, remediators and assessors, who think it's their job to put that fear in
Fear into
people because I would just say because they can then take advantage of them. And I'm sorry to have to say that about people in our own industry, but there's people in every industry that are going to not do it the right way either.
Well, the easy way is we try to set a bar at a high level, and the measurement of that bar is you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
That's right.
And that's it.
Yep. And that's what those practices, those Normie professional practices are all based on. That's why those practices get adjusted on a fairly regular basis to keep up with what's
Exactly.
going on in the industry. I'm telling you, I'm so excited to be part of Normie. That is a plug direct to you guys because
Okay. We'll take it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Enough
I mean,
about you. What do you think about me?
Yeah.
We'll go
No,
back
no,
to
no.
that.
It's enough about me. It's what I think about Normie.
Right.
So there you go.
Thank you,
Blessings.
sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stand by a second.